Again, thanks very much. We're going to start today with Denise KARKOS. Denise is the Chief Marketing Officer at TD Ameritrade. She's responsible for the overall management of TD Ameritrade's marketing and advertising to the long-term investor. In this role, she leads segment strategy, brand and advertising, social media, content marketing, marketing analytics, marketing technology, and operations. Denise has also served as Managing Director of Brand Advertising and Managing Director of Retail Segment Strategy within the firm. She's been with a number of different companies throughout her career. She's recently elected a member of the Ad Council's Board of Directors just this year in 2016. She's received multiple marketing honors, including Clio, Webby, Addy, Financial Communications Secretary Award. Her most recent accolades include Advertising Woman of New York, Changing the Game, Paradigm Shift. She won that in 2015. In 2016, she won Co-Jones Award, presented to her at the South by Southwest. She has a bachelor's degree in marketing from Our Ladies University, and we're delighted to have you here this morning, Denise. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. I just heard someone do a woo, and my roommate from Notre Dame is Beth Ann Fennelly, who has gone on to be a very accomplished poet and has like 4 books of poetry published. And when she comes back to Notre Dame on football weekends, she'll do a reading. And she actually got a standing ovation. And I'm going to tell her I got a woo, and that will do it for me. I'm beating her. Not that I'm competitive. I actually was a captain of the Notre Dame women's soccer team in 1993. So I am competitive. So let's start out with acknowledging a win right off the bat. I was out last night having dinner on campus with Linda Boff, who spoke yesterday, for some of us who are here, Tony Pace and Jim Lisinski and Jenny Rooney, who are going to speak today. And as I was sitting there having this wonderful dinner, I was thinking, the last dinner I had on campus in 1993, I think, was after scrounging 75 cents out of my couch cushions at Lafayette Square and going to the 7-Eleven and getting a Slim Jim. So things have changed. It's a lot nicer. I felt a little out of my element, but then we went to the linebacker and all was right with the world. So happy to be here today. I thought I would spend a little bit of time talking about TD Ameritrade. Not everybody knows who we are, which is my fault as a marketer, and then a little bit about our brand dilemma that we're facing and how I believe sports sponsorships can really help some of that plight. So a little bit about TD Ameritrade. So we are an online discount brokerage firm. So if you want to buy stock, you want to invest your 401k and roll it over and manage it yourself, you would come to TD Ameritrade. Our competitors are Fidelity, Schwab, E-Trade, Scottrade. And we are a 41-year-old company. I've been at the firm for 7 years. And it's a wonderful place to work. And the last 5 years, we've seen quite a bit of success. It's been a really good run for us. We're collecting a lot of relationships, earning their trust, and earning their business that follows. So very proud to be part of this team. So as I mentioned, that's about as far as I'm going to go on TD Ameritrade, so you understand the category we're competing in. But from a brand perspective, in that very slim category of 5, we have historically ranked 4th in brand consideration, just ahead of Scottrade. And that's not a good place to be. So I think that linebacker beer is catching up with me. Hold on. So that's not a good place to be. And when we look at our brand, what we find is not only just all the brand health funnel metrics that we all look at and know and love and see where we stack rank. And it's not an awareness problem in our category. Everybody knows the brands. It's consideration where it starts to really separate the wheat from the chaff. And one of the things that we've noticed as we explore what the problem with our brand is that we're completely neutral. So when you say if Fidelity were a car, as a Mustang, if E-Trade were an actor, who would it be? They have an answer. When you say TD Ameritrade, there's this palpable pause in the room. And this is actually what someone said to us once. They said, TD Ameritrade's not like a Harrison Ford or Denzel Washington. TD Ameritrade's like your cousin. You kind of forget about them, but every once in a while you'll see them at a family reunion and you'll have a beer with them and they're all right, but then you forget about them again. That's my brand. So pretty clear picture of my situation. But what is, being the eternal optimist, what's great about that is that there's complete white space. We're not negatively associated and we're not positively associated. So perfect opportunity for us to ascribe a personality to our brand. And one of the things that we thought would really help is sports marketing. And the reason we added this to our mix, so just to give you perspective, I manage a $260 million marketing budget, have about 160 people on my team. Awesome team, all people who want to win. No donors though, so I've got to round that out, diversity issues there. So we decided to really embrace sports sponsorships because we figured in the financial services category, there's not a lot of emotion, even though it's your money, and you would think it would be the most emotional thing in the world. But yet you've got 3,000, 4,000 financial services brand out there threatening you, saying you're going to outlive your retirement savings. You better start now. Have you saved enough? Here's how much you have to save. And we're all looking at the same research, but what the consumer does when they see that messaging, they shut down. They say, okay, I'm going to become inert because this is overwhelming. I don't even know where to begin. And so we're taking a different tact and trying to say, okay, let's be positive, let's show some optimism, and then let's connect with people's passions. And that's where sports sponsorships come in. We believe that by connecting ourselves with people's favorite sports teams or athletes or the Olympic Games, which I'll talk about, that affinity would ladder over to our brand and start to ascribe a positive personality. And let me just look at one thing. The funny thing about sponsorships is that they do have a unique personality. I like to say that they're like a child. They're unaccountable, they're defensive, and they're shallow. This is the risk of sports sponsorships that I wanted to talk about. Because the media mix that we work with in the marketing mix, this is just, like I said, $260 million budget. This is about a $10 to $20 million investment. The rest of it is hardworking media. So we know through our marketing mix models the efficacy of every dime spent. The board of directors loves me because of this. I'm able to go into that room and talk to them about the ROI of my digital spend, what the net new assets that my television spend is bringing in, and within television, what the DRTV is doing versus the cable versus the network versus sports, and really get granular with it. And they have a bit of an insatiable appetite for that kind of data. And in fact, there was one chart that I showed at the last board meeting that showed the ROI by medium, and everything was above $1. Up, online video is like $5 ROI, and my television mix was about 85 cents. And I think that's a really good thing to do, to go to the board and say things like, this is not working. And I'll talk a little bit about that here too, just to give that street cred, because us marketers can have a history of making sure that all sunshine and roses is coming out of our mouths. I've found that it's a much more successful strategy to be balanced and show the good and the bad. When it comes to sports sponsorships, if someone says we sponsor the NFL, how's the NFL doing? I get the question all the time. It's a really hard question to answer. And so one of the things that I talk about here is, because we've gotten so specific on the efficacy of the media mix, when it comes to things that you used to have a buy on, like, oh, we're just going to do a sponsorship because it feels good, it's got affinity, all those great brand attributes, it gets a lot more scrutiny. And therefore, it gets to the defensive point. So I find I have to defend an $8 million NFL sponsorship 7 ways to Sunday versus the $200 million that I'm spending elsewhere. So there's a little bit of a mismatch when it comes to sponsorships in terms of language and your ability to measure it. And that is something that you have to get in front of. And the shallow piece, I'll talk a little bit about when I show you some of the creative. But I honestly think one of the easiest things to do in marketing is to create a sports 30-second TV ad. I mean, it's fun. It's connecting with an audience that just wants to feel something in their heart. And versus trying to sell somebody on a retirement account, that's a little more challenging. So the hard thing about being a financial services brand in something like the Olympic Games is how do you draw that connection that's real? And so we'll talk a little bit about that. So the Olympics. I inherited the Olympics. We've been through 3 games, starting in London, then Sochi, and then Rio. And I was at Ameritrade and in the marketing department when we made this decision. I remember it was a fire sale. One of the other financial services competitors had backed out, and so for a mere $10 million, we could be sponsors of the Olympics, and then handcuff us for 2 more games after that. So 3 years ago, when I took over the CMO role, we really took a hard look at the efficacy of the Olympics. And we spent $10 million in London, and we spent $20 million in Sochi. And when it came to Rio, we were staring down a $40 million price tag. And that was a tough day. We really had to take a hard look and say, what is the right size spend for a 14, 16-day period of time of the games? And so that was something where we felt, let's look at the history, let's look at the past, let's look at the work we've done, and let's figure out the go-forward strategy. So I'm going to show you back in London and Sochi some of the work we did. And I think one of the most important things that I want to touch upon is when you talk about building a brand, when you talk about using sports sponsorships, any part of the mix, it's all about starting internally. And I feel so passionately about that. You build brands inside and out. The best brands can hold a mirror up and it's the same image internally and externally. That is incredibly important. And so bringing your associates along for the ride with something as visible as the games, and who doesn't love the Olympics? And so in marketing, you could run the risk of just trying to get the work out and trying to make sure that you're hitting your deadlines. You have to have people on your team who have the memory and the muscle and the heart to say, what's my associate strategy? And that way you get more buy-in, you get more involvement, and you get people understanding why you do the things you do, and it makes for a really strong culture. So I see myself as CMO, a huge part of my role is making sure that we're connecting with our associates as much as we are with the external audience. So I'll show you a couple of TV spots.
When he was only 4 years old, Jonathan Horton climbed all the way to the ceiling in the middle of a department store. Some parents might have scolded him. Jonathan's parents gave him gymnastics lessons. It's amazing how far you can go with a little help along the way. TD Ameritrade, proud sponsor of the 2012 U.S. Olympic team. TD Ameritrade, helping you reach your long-term goals, one small step at a time.
So before I show the internal side of this, from an external standpoint, you can see the soft sell, right? What we had to do, I wanted to sell brokerage. And I've got this biggest audience in the London and the Sochi Games, and I want to move the business. But can you imagine if I put an ad on after a heartfelt moment of the games and you found me talking about deposit $50,000 and get $600 back? Like, that's pretty inauthentic to the spirit of the games. And so you really have to respect the consumer mindset. But at the same time, what you do is you give up the true hard-driving business KPIs if you're going to be really honest with yourself and with the consumer. And so what you saw here is very soft connection to TD Ameritrade and what we do as a business, and that's the risk you run when you truly want to be authentic to the games. So as I mentioned, internal audiences incredibly passionate about making sure the associates are brought along, and when they're informed, fun things can happen. And so we had an internal contest, and I'll show you the winning video for the most creative approach from the associate base.
Hey, can you pass the salt? It's not funny. This is my life. Thank you.
So they had a lot of fun with it. It's so rewarding, when you can bring them along. And we also have the athletes come in and speak to the associates. We do moderated Q&A. We also sponsor Andrew Luck, and so having him come to Omaha and letting everyone bring their kids. I mean, we had 1,000 people show up, and all the kids, we spent 45 minutes with just having the kids ask Andrew Luck questions, most of which is, why aren't you playing for my team, which is, the Denver Broncos or the Patriots or whoever it might be, but really great association to bring the athletes along. So this was London and Sochi. We did television, obviously we did the whole mix, but as I mentioned, soft sell, strong internal morale, and at the end of the day, we looked, how'd it do? This is the hard truth. E-Trade got more credit for our campaign, and they didn't spend a dime. We did have a lift, not as much as E-Trade, it diminished. So what happened was, when you looked at the brand metrics, and again, over that condensed period of time, you saw us benefit from the spend by seeing brand consideration bump up, certainly brand awareness, familiarity, likability, all those great metrics for which you always assume the business will follow. However, 2 weeks after the games, it returned to norms. Same thing, so London, Sochi, same exact dynamic. You get a brand bump, and then you go back, for us, right back down to where you were. And from an ROI perspective, I couldn't justify another increased spend for the Rio Games. So we had to take a different tact for Rio. So what we did was we said, okay, authenticity, that's a big part of the games here. And so we looked across the athletes, and typically we would go to the athletes and say, who's gonna win? And let's sponsor them. And that's a pretty unpredictable pursuit. So we decided to go and look at, a lot of athletes were actually coming to us. The Olympians, I'm sure you may know, but they are not making money, right? They can't send their families to the games most times. There's not enough money to send, their parents to Sochi or Rio. So they often come to the brands and say, here's my skills, here's what I'm about, and they, really fight for sponsorship. And so we had that dynamic, and we had it from existing clients who happened to be Olympians. So we chose to sponsor them. So you'll recognize maybe the Bryan brothers, the doubles tennis players. Mariel Zagunis is in there. She's Domer, class of 2006, I believe, fencer. David Oliver, track and field, Shantae Lowe, track and field, and David Badaya, who won gold in London and won 2 medals, I believe, in the Rio Games. So all clients, and we thought, okay, let's start with authentic athletes that actually understand our brand and are part of our brand as a jumping off point. And what that allowed us is that we actually connected them with clients. And we did a lot of online viral video of clients and these competitors talking about trading and competing with each other. So it was a wonderful thing to do for our clients. They got to spend some time with these Olympians, but then the Olympians also got to challenge their own skills by going up against some of our top clients who are making a lot of money. And again, put that on video, on social, and made sure that that was something that was part of the campaign. But here's really where the magic came in for Rio. As I mentioned, this is a huge stage. You're in the Olympic Games, and how do we make sure we have that heartfelt connection that's authentic? And one of the things we learned in our research was that when you talk to an Olympian, they say the first time they go over to a Games, it's incredibly intimidating. Our Olympic Village is overwhelming, all the different countries and people that they're meeting, they have their own event, they've got PR. It's just overwhelming. They've never been in a situation like that before. So what we decided to do was look at the next generation that will be going to the Olympics in 4 years to come. And working with the USOC, identified who these athletes are. And we decided to give them an experience of a lifetime, which is to send them over to a Games when they're not competing. And therefore, they can get the feel of it so that when they do go to compete in 4 years, they have a sense of what it's all about. It's not going to be an intimidating factor for them. And I want to show you a video that we chose, and this one got a lot, you'll see at the end, a lot of traction online. This only ran digitally. But we surprised the hopefuls by pairing them up with an Olympian, and these hopefuls have been tracking these Olympians, for a long time. We have a lot of information from their parents, and the parents kept it secret, which was awesome. I can't believe they did it. But this is the unveil video of these kids finding out that they're about to go with their heroes over to the Games.
This is my sport. I want this to be my thing.
We've moved from Florida, Indianapolis, North Carolina, just so I can train.
I've made little goals for myself. Win this bout, win my first competition.
I've been around track since I was 2, so this is like a second home to me.
I pray to help me just let it all out on the track.
Everything rides on my ability to focus on the job that I need to do.
I take 3 deep breaths, get calmed down, and get off the tower as quick as I can.
When it's all said and done, I want to break the Olympic record in hurdles and just make a legacy for myself.
My greatest dream right now is to just go to the Olympics.
That was a pretty good rip.
Hey! What are you doing here?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
Great.
Oh my God.
I'm actually here because TD Ameritrade, they're gonna send you to Rio,
No way.
to the games.
Is that right?
to watch.
TD Ameritrade is sending you to Rio.
Oh my God.
You guys are going to Rio.
Wait, like how?
You have been identified by the USOC and TD Ameritrade as Olympic hopefuls.
4, 8 years time, maybe you guys will be there representing Team USA and we'll be in the stands cheering you on.
I'll see you in Rio.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Thank you.
TD Ameritrade is proud to support this generation and the next of Team USA, who, like you, are invested in living their dream.
Go Team USA.
You ready to go?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah?
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, I love that. And I wanted to also show you the associates. So they don't let up. They were just as excited for Rio as they were for the other games. And so the contest winner is here.
It's every associate's dream to compete in the all-around. Amber Creer first dreamed it when she was 10 years old. She's never been in this position, and she would not be here this afternoon if she'd remembered to pack her lunch.
We're here in the cafeteria where we'll witness the women's individual all-around salad routine. Hello everybody, I'm Joe Giannone along with John Oliver, and this is the most exciting time of the day. Here we go.
And she answers the first test beautifully, starting with the letters. She goes for the carrots. Oh, they're almost out of bounds. That may cost her.
Ooh, peppers next, and all on the right. Incredible. John, she has a chance to redeem herself with the eggs. Let's watch. Ooh, would you look at that placement? All 4 corners, John. Very impressive.
And here we go with the mushrooms, landing in a lovely split position there.
And now it's time for the tomato dismount. It's a drop from the top. Perfection.
What do you think the judges will think, Joe?
Oh, I don't know, John. Well, let's see. Ooh, she gets an 8 from the register on the right. That seems a little low. But would you look at that? It's a 9 from the left register. Wow, that puts her in 2nd place. Can you believe it?
Oh wait, a late cookie edition, and a 10 from the judges. A 10, Joe. She's just won the gold.
So very silly, of course, but the cool thing about this is, so that woman runs our avatar, and I think that's probably like a 1980s term these days, so our AI, our chat room. And 90% of our transactions with our clients happen online. So we are a fairly faceless company in a category where trust is a huge problem. Edelman's stack ranks all categories, and financial services has creeped up to the 2nd to the bottom, but chemicals is still 4 ahead of us. So we have a huge problem. So the associates in trying to draw that connection with the consumer, she's running the chat room, and she's met the Olympians, and she won this video. And when she was on the chat room recently, the client was asking about like lost my account login, need some information, and they got into this chat where like, okay, I need to go watch TV. My kids are going off to diving, and she's like, oh, I was with David Badaya yesterday, and they go back and forth and on this chat, and all of a sudden it creates such a meaningful connection because we didn't forget the associate. We bring them along, they get part of the strategy, and then we start having dialogues with consumers that are so much more intimate. And I never would have thought that would have come out of a chat room, but she sent me a note and said like, thank you for giving me the opportunity because it's creating connections with clients. So you can't solve problems one customer at a time, but it sure does feel good when you're getting that feedback back. So how did it do? We went at this totally different. We spent $7.5 million. So instead of the $40 million that we really were asked to spend, we knew that that wasn't going to be the right ROI. So we went to the owned and earned route and a little bit of paid with ESPN. So we really leveraged online content, made sure that we leveraged all of our owned channels, and really got it right. So rectified the overspend situation and set the KPIs to be much more about engagement and brand lift. And the numbers are still coming out. So in terms of, are we going to see any business lift from this? I guess a $7.5 million spend, if I'm a betting woman, I think that we will see the right ROI for that spend. So really proud of the engagement metrics that we had here. And really just lastly, before I open up for questions, and the questions can take any shape. I decided to focus on sponsorships today just because it's a fun topic I didn't think anyone else would be covering, but we can talk about any part of the mix whatsoever. But I guess my parting thoughts would be, make sure you're always combining powerful external execution with strong internal approach. As I said, best brands start from within, and don't forget to bring your associates along the way. But also, it's all about driving business, and that's all about the consumer. So making sure that you're leveraging every part of your mix and being honest with yourself. It was humbling for me to go to our CEO and say, I am skeptical of this tens of millions of dollar investment that we've been making over the last 4 years, and we're going to try a different way. And we'll have to keep evaluating things, but I think having an honest approach and knowing when something's working, when it's not, is pretty important. So with that, I would love any questions from anybody. And there's one right in the middle. I think there might be mics. She's right there. No one's going to want to ask a question now that it's a production.
I know. Jackie McAllister.
But I like your outfit.
Oh, thank you. Jackie McAllister, class of '98, and I'm with Marriott and brand marketing. And so we do a lot of sponsorships and sports sponsorships. How do you, in terms of coming up with the ideas and having this comprehensive idea, do you use agencies? Is it internal? How do you kind of come up with these ideas?
Yeah, I have a sports marketing team of actually 4 female D1 athletes that are just so talented. And they have the skills to do all the decision-making themselves. We've found when we talk to our sports marketing agency, they're just really busy trying to sell us on the next property when we have more than enough to deal with right now. So we use them to then really verify our idea. I'll take the NFL as an example. So the Olympics were kind of on ice after London and Rio. We weren't sure, and we had a 3-game contract. So as we prepared to try to get it right for Rio, we wanted to hedge our bets, still believing that sponsorship was an important part of the strategy. So my team went out and looked at all the leagues and found that the NFL had the most reach of our target audience of all the rest of the sports leagues combined. And they took that information and then went to our sports marketing agency and said, we think the NFL is the right thing for us for all of these reasons. Can you tell us if we're right or wrong? And so use them to do the heavy lifting about what the value of a sponsorship would be. And so that's our approach. That helped.
We found the same with the NFL, too.
Good. Right up there.
Hi, I'm Laura Rawls. I'm Master of Finance 2016, and I work for Nuveen Investments. So I'm really pleased to see you here because it's a niche market that doesn't get a lot of attention for marketing. In terms of social media and being on the cutting edge of marketing, how do you get around the regulations and staying compliant?
Yeah. So, maybe I've overclocked on this internal piece of it because, I am accountable for all, we drive a lot of revenue through my team, and that's what I spend my time talking to the board about, not this internal part, but I think it's important for marketers to know, and that is exactly this example. When we knew, years ago that we were going to have a huge challenge trying to be present in social media because it's such a heavily regulated environment, we built incredible relationships with the most vocal and important people in our compliance and legal departments. We brought them to our ad agency. We had happy hour there. We wined and dined them. They don't get to do that stuff, and we recognize that. So we then shared the strategy. Before anything was ever put on paper, we talked to them about the idea and the concept and where we wanted to take it, and then asked for their input. And they came along the journey with us. I think if you just bring them in early, then it just softens so much ground. We are now to the point where we are in a beg forgiveness. We don't have to have every tweet approved, can you imagine? But that was where we started. So every single tweet gets approved. We'll approve it within 24 hours. Like, oh my God, no. So now we're in a situation where we let it fly, and we've proven to be good partners, and they've proven to be good allies in the process because they were brought in. We did a little old school, just build good relationships the old-fashioned way, and we're all one team now.
Hi, you used the term granular when you talked about data analysis. What tools do you use to determine KPI and ROI, and how big is the team? Do you have any advice for someone who has a smaller team, what tools to use to measure those things?
Yeah, so we have about 25 people in my team that run analytics. TD Ameritrade also is a very decentralized analytics environment, so we have analytics groups all throughout the company, and that creates its own strife here and there. But we've invested in Market Share Partners, which is a media mix modeling company, but it's to the tune of $1 million a year. And we complement that with advanced client tracking and all sorts of great data that farms into the media mix model. So that's how I do it. To answer the smaller budget, I might say, I don't know if anyone else is operating the same thing, but I don't have a small budget problem as much, so I don't really know how to solve that part of it, but that's how we do it. And I gotta tell you, the media mix model that we use with Market Share Partners has just given me so much leeway with the executives. They love to talk about what the outputs of that model, and we can talk at a level of net present value by medium and really get granular on it. So that's how we do it. Other questions? Got one over here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tom Acho out of Chicago with American Airlines. So depending on who the speaker was flying, I may be apologizing or I may be saying, maybe I need to talk to him for future flights. At the very beginning, you spoke a little bit on the slide. You had 4 or 5 different boxes up there. One was also community involvement. Could you talk just a little bit about how you position or how you leverage community involvement, and if you're able to measure the return on investment, not only money but time of the employees for brand lift?
Yeah. So our community involvement, the reason that was on that slide as it relates to sports sponsorships is that we also sponsor the Special Olympics, and our associates, our whole community strategy is not just giving money, it's involvement. Where can our associates get involved? So we have hundreds of associates go to the Special Olympics and in some of the trial events that happen domestically and run those games with the committee. And they get very, very involved in that. And so we're very proud of the associate hours that are put into that. The thing about TD Ameritrade is that we are Canadian. So, TD, Toronto Dominion, merged with Ameritrade, Omaha, Nebraska, but we're run by Canadians, which is phenomenal because we're fairly risk averse, but we're also humble. And so we don't talk about all of our community involvement externally. And then I do believe it's a gap. I think it's just something, the DNA of our company. We don't want to go out there and talk boastfully about how we've given 90,000 hours to Habitat for Humanity. So I don't have any of the real KPIs because of that nature. But I will say this, that we do a Towers Watson Associate Engagement Survey like many companies do every year, and we have 99% participation in that survey and 90% engagement, sustainable engagement. And there's a big section in there about involvement in the community, and that is the #1 category where people feel proud to work at TD Ameritrade. So from a retention and engaging associates, we know there's ROI there, I just can't quantify it. So that's really the value of it for us. Yeah.
Hi, Mark Flaherty, class of '90. So in the spirit of competition, I'm hoping you're going to tell us that E-Trade did not benefit from this Olympics.
Yes, well, we don't know yet. So we are still doing kind of that analysis. So fingers crossed. Any E-Traders in here? We've been edging them out. So I should say, we have been #2 in brand consideration 5 out of the last 6 quarters. So we know that the whole machine is humming in the right direction now, and I'm incredibly proud of the team for that. So we're kicking their ass. Bob? Yeah, Fidelity. Wow. And here's the thing, if you look at the longitudinal view of brand consideration, it's a game of inches for Schwab, E-Trade, Scottrade, TD Ameritrade, and yes, we're #2, but it's like 13% versus 12. Fidelity is 35% consideration. So they're in a different league. And largely, certainly they're effective marketers. The green line has helped them quite a bit. Having that device is something that I clamor for, and I think I'm about to get, finally. But I think also everyone's first 401k was with Fidelity. And also go back to like the Peter Lynch days and the mutual. They've got so many other benefits to their brand that really strengthen that we just don't have. I think there was one question.
My name's Alex. I'm a first-year MBA student. You mentioned you've got about 160 people that report to you. It sounds like multiple agencies. You talk about some of the challenges that you personally face in terms of balancing all that, delegating, empowering people, and how you've kind of grown and learned to overcome those challenges.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if you heard Linda Boff speak last night from GE. She mentioned, it was a subtle piece of her presentation, but she mentioned that she spends a lot of time now speaking internally, and she said that she's trying to increase that. And I know exactly what she was talking about. When you get to the CMO role, it's just a sexy title, and people want to make sure that you're invited and speaking on panels or going to presentations, and it becomes a little intoxicating. Like, you don't think I'm going to say yes to a Notre Dame presentation? Like, yeah, but I'm also missing an important meeting back in Jersey City. I make sure that I absolutely keep my eye on where the paycheck is coming from. My first dedication is to my team, to the shareholders of the company, to the TD Ameritrade. So I get on other managing directors' team meetings. I get my team on those meetings. So if there's, I think, 2 facets to it. Personally, I have a chief of staff, and she knows that I get my energy when I'm in front of our associates, and that marketing is like the sexiest function in the building, so they want to hear about it. And I always bring little gifts and tchotchkes that are NFL or Olympic branded, so I buy their love. Nothing wrong with that, right? So I am very deliberate about making sure I'm in front of the head of sales, the head of service, the head of technology, go to operations, go to compliance, go to legal. I do the circuit. I am visible in front of these teams. And then my team is as well. And I think the struggle I have there is I have a couple introverts that report to me that's the last thing they want to do, but they run brand. So it's the balance of you can't force someone to change their stripes. And so either you surround them with people who have that talent, and we will go deep into the org to put people in front of the associates and test them out. It's a good way to test your presentation skills. And then, again, I think externally, like I know we talked about tweeting some of this out, which is good, but I was talking to Jenny, like too much of that, it can get old, and internally people forget that you were just at their team meeting last week, because all they know is now you're at Notre Dame speaking, and just people are judgy. So just, I think, eyes wide open, keep it balanced, Don't promote too much of the external stuff because people think you don't have your eye on the prize. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Martha France, class of 91. Denise, can you talk a little bit about how you motivated your team coming off of the disappointment that you had to come up with something that was just so creative and authentic? And how did you motivate people to want to be a part of it? Because they might have had some fear coming off of the disappointment that you'd had initially.
I think it's always balancing expectations. So going in, even when we're going through the creative reviews and seeing this wonderful, beautiful creative come out, it's you celebrate that work. It's such good work, but to say but we are a for-profit business, guys. So let's make sure that we're going to set ourselves up for success, but know that we may not get it. And when if we say this happens, that we find that the NFL's not working, Olympics isn't working, and my sports marketing team's sitting there. I already am loading them up with helping the social media team. So keeping them super busy is the antidote for any kind of nervousness or disappointment or morale issues. So they're as excited now about getting engaged with social media, and the good news is there's enough work to go around that I can do this type of thing, so that it's like a diversified portfolio for them. So I keep them busy, and I manage expectations. We celebrate the wins, but we do it in a very measured way to remind them that we're here to make money, and certainly that's through changing the hearts and minds, but if it has a long tail and we've gone through 3 games and we haven't seen it, then it's probably time to cut bait. How am I doing on time? Tim, one more question? Making you run for it.
Good morning. My name is Matt Caffrey, class of 94. I'm with Eli Lilly right now. Thanks for a great presentation. 2 quick questions. So one, you said one more, so I'm going to sneak in 2, but it sounded very much like the initiative was around new business. I'm curious if there was intent or what you saw with existing customers, whether there was more activity there. And then you also talked about speaking to the board and other folks. How hard do you have to work to convince people that changing perceptions like brand personality, those kind of equity measures are going to lead to changes in behavior and new business?
Yeah, great. So we did have a robust client communication plan behind the Olympics, and that was largely contests, giveaways, surprise and delight. If people are tweeting a positive thing, we'd send them, Olympic gear. So very much a feel-good retention play, but then also client communication saying if you do X, then we'll give you Y. Chances to win a trip to Rio. Ironically, so we had a big client campaign for Sochi, and we had. If you deposit, different tiers of assets, you had a higher likelihood of winning a trip to the games. So we had 8 people win a trip to Sochi. And if you remember all the noise around the games with Putin, and there's a lot of negativity, all 8, we decided as a brand, they're so excited, they're going to the Olympic Games. But my team started saying, I don't know if I want to go to the games. And so I'm like, well, if you're feeling that way, then these clients are probably feeling that way. And we called all 8 of them and said, if you don't want to go, we'll give you the money. And all 8 didn't go. They were like shaking in their boots, feeling like it was almost punitive. Well, I can't not go, but I don't want to go. And so things like that, just, if your team's coming to you saying that they're nervous, then the clients are probably thinking the same thing. All 8 backed out. And then your second question about the board. I would say, first of all, preparing for a board meeting, if you haven't done it, is hell. It's like 3 months of preparation and predicting every single question that I throw at you. And knowing that I shouldn't say this, but a former CMO didn't last long because they couldn't answer some of the revenue questions at a certain segment level. So you literally are saying, okay, for the active trader, this is the revenue they brought in this year, here's their LTV. Like, you gotta know your business. You got to know it like a pro. So a lot of preparation. A lot of people say it's a no-win situation. Just try to not get in front of the board. I don't compete that way. I make sure that I'm putting myself out there, and they can be incredibly gratifying. Plus, it gets you really fine-tuned on your business. Like, you know your stuff cold, and nothing like a board meeting to make you super smart on your own business. But your specific question is one of the challenging ones. I have found that I have the luxury of being able to talk about the business KPIs, revenue, trade lift, all the great stuff, to such a degree that I don't have to go and talk to them about, well, you know, the brand is, I certainly talk to them about how we've gone from 4 to 2 in brand consideration, but tying it to the business, they don't understand. They're not marketers. They can't understand, and it sounds like BS when you're able to talk so specifically about how the rest of your mix is driving revenue. So I'm sure there's lots of opinions out there. I choose to focus on what they want to hear, which is, what revenue am I driving for them? And I'll talk a little bit about the brand, but I'll focus elsewhere. So thank you for your question, and thank you.
Yeah, let's thank Denise.